This lesson is for dividing monomials. When looking at dividing monomials, we've already learned about the property we're dividing where the base is the same and you subtract the exponents. This is the same idea, just with the numbers, the 20 over 45, you are going to treat that as a fraction and reduce that piece. So you're basically dividing out what's in common between each of these terms. So the 20 over 45, both of them share a 5. So if I were to take a 5 out of the 20, I'd be left with a 4. And I take a 5 out of 45, I would be left with a 9. So that fraction would reduce to 4/9. And then the variables are the same as where, since the base is the same, you subtract that exponent value. So you would have x to the 3 minus 1, so that would equal x squared. And another way of thinking about it is there's 1x on the bottom, 3 on top, so this one would cancel out with one of these and you'd be left with an x squared. Then you would have y to the 5th minus 7, so y to the negative 2. And since that's a negative exponent, this is actually the same as 1 over y squared. And looking at our problem here, y to the 5th over y to the 7th, there's 5 y's on top, 7 on the bottom. All 5 of these would cancel out, and you'd be left with 2 on the bottom. And then z to the 4th, z squared. So 4 minus 2, you end up with z squared. So putting it all together, on the top you would have a 4. You have this x squared, so 4x squared, and z squared. On the bottom, you've still got this 9. And then you have a y squared. So you can think of it as subtracting the exponents like I've done here. And anything that's still a positive exponent is still going to be in your numerator. Anything with a negative exponent would be in your denominator. And then reducing that fraction value. So looking at another one, 8a to the negative 2 times b to the 8th. And then 24a to the 4th times b to the negative 5th. So 8/24, that would reduce, there's an 8 and 24, so this would actually reduce to 1/3. And then for your variables with exponents, if I subtract negative 2 minus 4, that's equivalent to a to the negative 6, so that would be in my denominator. And then b to the 8th minus a negative 5 with adding the opposite, so add the opposite, that actually equals 13, so b to the 13th. And then again, anything with a negative exponent is going to be in your denominator, because this is actually equivalent to 1 over a to the 6th. And then this one, a positive exponent, it's going to go in my numerator. So in the numerator, I've got a 1, and I have this b to the 13th. In the denominator, I've got this 3, and then a to the 6th. Looking at this with word problems, if Ben's age can be represented by 3x to the 4th and Rebecca's age can be represented by 6x squared, what is the ratio of Ben's age to Rebecca's age? And again, ratio means a fraction, so we need to set this up as a fraction. So as a quotient, what we've been looking at. So Ben's age to Rebecca's age. So 3x to the 4th to Rebecca's age of 6x squared. And then you simplify like we've been doing. So 3/6 would simplify to 1/2. And then x to the 4th over x squared. There's 4 x's on top, 2 on the bottom. So we'd have 2 left over on the top. So you could just write this as x squared over 2. And if you subtracted x to the 4 minus 2, you still end up with x squared. Since it's a positive exponent, it's in our numerator. And one last example, find the ratio of the perimeter of this rectangle to its area. So remember, perimeter is found by adding all the distances around this shape. So we've got actually a 5n here and an 8n here. So for our perimeter to our area, the perimeter we're adding. So 5n plus 5n is 10n. And then plus 8n, we've got 18n, plus another 8n is 26n for our numerator. So 26n is our perimeter. So adding all the way up around. Our area is found by multiplying the width times the length. So 5n times 8n, 5 times 8 is 40, n times n would be n squared. So we have 40 n squared. And then simplifying this, dividing out what's in common, they both share a 2. So if I divide out a 2 from 26, I've got 13. 40 divided by 2 is 20. And then the n's cancel out. So there's one n on top, 2 on the bottom. We'd be left with just an n on the bottom. So 13 over 20n.